Have you ever looked in the mirror and thought, what's wrong with me? Why can't I stay consistent? You start something and stop. You make a promise to yourself and break it. You feel motivated, but then collapse into old habits as if your willpower disappeared overnight. So you label yourself lazy, weak, undisciplined. You carry the guilt like a secret. And every time you try again, that voice returns. Why even bother? You never finish anything. But what if I told you that voice is lying? What if I told you you are not undisciplined? You're not broken. You've just been at war with a system designed to distract you. And every time you think you're failing, you're actually just losing a battle you didn't even realize you were in. This video is not another speech about working harder. This is a wake-up call. Because the real problem isn't your discipline. It's your environment, your inputs, your loops. You've been punishing yourself for not being focused, while feeding your mind exactly what destroys your focus. And today, we fix that. In the next minutes, I'm going to show you how to break the cycle, reclaim your mental clarity, and build unshakable consistency. Not through pressure, but through precision. You'll discover why most people sabotage their progress before noon, why motivation fades, and what actually sustains identity change. And by the end of this video, you'll walk away with a clear blueprint to protect your attention like your life depends on it. Because it does. And here's the part nobody tells you. Discipline isn't built by pushing harder. It's built by removing what's pulling you back. So stay with me. Because once you see what's really stealing your power, you'll never blame yourself the same way again. Let's begin. It doesn't start with laziness. It starts with something small. You pick up your phone, just for a second. You check one notification, then another, and suddenly, 20 minutes are gone. You tell yourself, okay, now I'll start. But your brain is already buzzing, scattered, fragmented. You sit down to work, and it feels harder than it should. Your attention slips. You jump to something else. You start doubting yourself. And once again, you whisper what's become a silent belief. I can't focus. I'm not disciplined enough. But let me ask you something. How do you expect to focus when your mind is trained all day to be reactive? To jump from one thing to another, never landing, never grounding? We don't have a discipline problem. We have a distraction addiction. And the worst part? This cycle is invisible because it disguises itself as normal life. Everyone checks their phone in the morning. Everyone scrolls between tasks. Everyone watches something just to relax before bed. So you don't even question it. You don't realize that while you're blaming yourself for not being consistent, your mind is actually under siege by a loop you didn't choose, but that you've been repeating for years. Here's the truth nobody told you. Distraction isn't just a habit, it's a system. And systems always win over willpower. Your mind doesn't default to focus. It defaults to whatever you've trained it to do most often. And if your daily pattern is distraction, your identity will start to reflect it. You say things like, I'm not a morning person. I just get bored easily. I need to feel motivated first. But these are not facts. They are symptoms. They are the voices of a mind stuck in a loop it was never taught to escape. Let's make it plain. Here's how the cycle works. Trigger, you feel a little discomfort, boredom, uncertainty, tiredness. Response, you reach for a quick hit, your phone, a snack, a dopamine rush. Reward, temporary relief. Regret, later, you feel guilty or off track. Repeat, to avoid that feeling, you distract again. And that's how the day slips through your fingers. Not because you're lazy, but because no one ever taught you how to interrupt that loop. But now that you can see it, you can stop blaming yourself. You're not weak. You're not incapable. You've just been stuck in a design that benefits from your lack of focus. The world we live in rewards your attention only when it serves someone else's agenda. Apps are built to keep you inside. News is built to trigger your emotions. Content is built to keep you consuming, not creating. And in the middle of that storm, you're trying to build discipline? It's like planting seeds during a hurricane. So today, we change the strategy. Instead of forcing yourself to focus harder, you start by interrupting the invisible cycle. That means noticing when your hand moves toward distraction, even before your mind registers it. It means asking, is this helping me build the person I want to become, or just helping me escape this moment? It means reclaiming your mind as a tool, not a trap. And the first step? Make the cycle visible. Every time you catch yourself reaching for a distraction, name it. Say it out loud if you need to. This is a loop. Not I'm failing. Not I have no control. Just this is a loop. Because once you see the loop, you can break it. This is how discipline begins, not with force, but with awareness. You've probably been told that discipline means doing hard things. But real discipline is knowing what's pulling you away from your power and learning to stop feeding it. Let's be clear. The goal here is not perfection. The goal is pattern interruption. And with each interruption, you reinforce a new identity. Not as someone who gets distracted, but as someone who notices. That small shift in awareness? It's everything. Because it's the beginning of self-leadership. And if this message is speaking directly to what you've been feeling lately, if you're tired of blaming yourself and ready to finally build a version of you that stays consistent, then this is the journey you've been waiting for. We're just getting started. So pause, take a breath. And if you haven't yet, subscribe. Not because I told you to, but because this is your space now. A space where we stop feeding the problem and finally start building the solution. Let's keep going. You think you're tired because you're doing too much, but that's not it. You're tired because your mind is carrying everything at once. Too many tabs open, too many unfinished thoughts, too many invisible decisions pulling your attention in every direction. You wake up and the noise is already there before your feet even touch the ground. A message, a notification, a thought about something you forgot yesterday, a worry about something that's coming tomorrow. And just like that, your day starts crowded. Not physically, mentally. And the worst part? You think this is normal. You've been trained to believe that a full mind is a productive one. That constantly thinking means you're being responsible. That worrying means you're preparing. But in reality, your mind isn't focused, it's congested. And there's a difference. A focused mind is calm, steady, selective. It knows what matters and ignores what doesn't. But a congested mind? It reacts to everything. It jumps. It overthinks. It creates noise where there should be direction. This is why you struggle to stay consistent. Not because you lack discipline, but because you're trying to move forward while dragging mental chaos behind you. You're not disorganized. You're overloaded. You're not lazy. You're mentally fragmented. And nobody taught you how to clean up. Because nobody profits from your clarity. They profit from your confusion. The more scattered you are, the more you scroll. The more uncertain you feel, the more you buy. The more anxious your mind becomes, the easier it is to manipulate your choices. This is why the world keeps feeding you more. More opinions, more information, more content, more comparisons. But your transformation won't come from more. It will come from less. Not less ambition, less noise. Not less discipline, less distraction. Not less effort, but less internal clutter. Let's pause here and ask something simple. When was the last time your mind felt truly quiet? Not numb, not distracted, not entertained, but clear. Can you even remember? Because if you can't, that's not your fault. It's the consequence of living in a world where silence feels unnatural, where being still feels wrong, where productivity has replaced presence. And if you want to take your power back, that ends now. Here's the truth. A mind that's always full can't focus. It can't commit. It can't follow through. Because it's already exhausted by the noise inside. You don't need more energy. You need fewer leaks. And those leaks come from everything you're carrying unconsciously. The to-do list running in the background. The silent comparisons. The unresolved emotions you keep pushing aside. The pressure to do everything, be everything, fix everything. This is the weight you start each day with, even before you begin. So no wonder you can't stay consistent. You're trying to run a marathon with a backpack full of mental bricks. It's time to unpack. Let me give you something simple and powerful. Not another habit, not another tool, just a shift, a ritual of release. Once a day, preferably before your main task or in the first hour of the morning, do this. Sit down. No phone, no music, no stimulation. Close your eyes and breathe, slowly and deeply, for 2 minutes. Ask yourself, what am I still carrying that I don't need right now? Name it, out loud if you need to. I don't need to fix everyone's problems. I don't need to replay that conversation. I don't need to check my phone yet. Then choose one word to define how you want to show up now. Calm, sharp, grounded. Breathe into that word. Let the rest fall away. Do this every day, and your clarity will return. Not because the world got quieter, but because you did. This is what Covey meant when he spoke of putting first things first. You can't lead your life if you can't even hear yourself think. You can't build discipline if your mind is too full to decide what matters. And this isn't just about productivity. It's about identity. Because if your mind is always cluttered, your sense of self will be too. You'll keep shifting. You'll keep second-guessing. You'll keep starting and stopping, not because you're not committed, but because you're not clear. And clarity is not a luxury. It's a requirement. So here's the shift. Before you try to add discipline, remove distraction. Before you try to add goals, create space. Before you try to become more, let go of what you're not. This isn't weakness. This is mastery. Because when the mind is clear, the next step becomes obvious. You don't have to force it. You don't have to fake motivation. You just follow through because there's nothing in the way anymore. So let this be your quiet rebellion. In a world that wants your mind full and your heart numb, choose clarity. Choose silence. Choose to be the one who leads, not reacts. And tomorrow, when the noise comes back, and it will, you'll know what to do. You'll pause. You'll breathe. You'll remember, I don't need all of this. Just presence. Just one step. Just you, clear, focused, and in control. Let's keep going. You look busy. Your day is full. Your calendar has no empty slots. You're answering messages, checking notifications, jumping from one thing to another. You collapse at the end of the day, exhausted, and you wonder, why do I feel like I didn't really do anything? Because deep down, you know, you were moving, but you weren't progressing. You were reacting, but you weren't choosing. You were producing, but not what actually matters. This is the trap of modern productivity. We've replaced intention with activity. We've mistaken movement for momentum. We've confused stimulation with success. And it's costing us everything. You wake up and the race begins. Not because you chose it, but because you were thrown into it. Before you can decide what matters most today, you've already responded to 10 things that don't. You answer everyone else's urgency, but leave your own priorities untouched. And at the end of the day, you feel it again. That empty productivity, that silent frustration, that quiet voice whispering, something's off. And it is. Because productivity isn't about doing more. It's about doing what actually moves your life forward. It's about doing what aligns with who you're becoming. But here's the hard truth. Most people stay distracted not because they're weak, but because it's easier to stay busy than to face what really needs attention. It's easier to answer emails than to make that difficult decision. It's easier to organize your desk than to confront the fact that you're off track. It's easier to scroll through advice than to sit down and act on what you already know. Distraction wears the mask of productivity. And every time you fall for it, your life stays exactly where it is. We've created a world where you can spend your entire day in motion without ever moving toward yourself. And the worst part? You get rewarded for it. People will admire your hustle. They'll say, you're always on the grind. But no one sees that inside, you're drifting, not building. Let me ask you a question and answer it honestly. When was the last time you completed a task that deeply mattered to you without interruptions? No tab switching, no background noise, no multitasking, just full presence with something that aligns with who you want to be. If that feels rare, or maybe even impossible, that's not a personal flaw. That's a design problem. Because we live in a system that profits from your half-focus. The longer you're stuck in the loop of constant but empty action, the less likely you are to step back and ask, is this actually helping me become who I want to be? So now, we break that illusion. Here's what I want you to do. Track your false work for just one day. Write down everything you do that feels productive, but actually avoids the real work. Checking messages while procrastinating a decision. Organizing instead of executing. Watching one more video to prepare when you already know what to do. Label each one for what it is, distraction dressed as discipline. Then ask, what's the one thing I could do today that would actually change my trajectory? Not 10, not 5, just one. And don't confuse complexity with importance. The most powerful actions are usually the simplest and the most avoided. A single focused hour can do more for your life than 10 scattered ones. You don't need a new productivity app. You need clarity and courage. Clarity to know what matters. Courage to face what you've been avoiding by staying busy. Because this is what Stephen Covey meant when he warned us. The key is not to prioritize what's on your schedule, but to schedule your priorities. You don't find time for what matters. You create it. You protect it. You defend it from everything that pretends to be urgent, but isn't. So the next time you feel that rush of false productivity, pause. Ask yourself, is this real work, or just noise that makes me feel in control? You'll be surprised how often the answer is noise. And when you spot it, you take your power back. Because here's the secret. Discipline isn't about being busy. It's about being brave enough to choose less, with more intention. And when you do that consistently, everything changes. You start finishing what you start. You stop craving motivation, because now you have clarity. You stop drowning in decisions, because now you know your direction. You stop feeling like you're behind, because you're finally moving with purpose. So let this be the day you stop performing productivity and start living from precision. And now I want to hear from you. What's the one distraction that steals your focus the most? Is it your phone? Notifications? Overthinking? People-pleasing? The urge to be constantly doing something? Drop it in the comments. Naming it is the first step to defeating it. Let's keep going, because the next step will change how you see your environment forever. You wake up and reach for your phone. Before you've said a single word to yourself, you've already absorbed 20 voices, 5 opinions, and a dozen mental triggers. Before you've even stood up, your mind is responding to someone else's world. And this happens every day, not because you chose it, but because your environment chose for you. You might think you're in control of your time, your focus, your identity. But the truth is harder. Your environment is constantly shaping who you are, even when you're not aware of it. We like to think we're independent thinkers, but your brain is adaptive, not neutral. It reflects what it's repeatedly exposed to. You live in clutter? Your mind starts tolerating disorder. You're surrounded by noise. Your focus becomes fragmented. You consume negativity? Your thoughts turn reactive and defensive. You work in chaos? Your discipline begins to erode without you even noticing. This isn't about willpower. This is about design. Because no matter how committed you are, if your environment pulls you in the opposite direction, eventually it wins. And that's not weakness. That's wiring. Think about it. Even the most powerful computers slow down when overloaded with junk. Even the most motivated people break when surrounded by distraction. Not because they don't care, but because they never had a system that supports their focus. Right now, your environment is doing one of two things. Training you for consistency, training you for distraction. And it's doing it silently, 24/7. Every object, every screen, every sound around you is sending a message to your mind. Most of the time, that message is react, consume, switch, escape. And you wonder why it's so hard to stay present? You're not unfocused, you're unprotected. Nobody taught you that discipline starts with space. That clarity is not just a mindset, it's a physical setup. That even your home, your phone, your desk can either become allies or enemies of your progress. So here's what you need to understand now, and it's urgent. Your environment doesn't need to be perfect. It just needs to stop working against you. Let's start small and make this real. Look around your space right now. Ask, is this room helping me focus or pulling me away from it? Most people don't realize their space is silently exhausting them. Reduce visual noise. Every open tab, scattered object, unfinished pile, it's a whisper saying, you're behind. Clear one surface. Start there. 1. Silence digital intruders. You don't need your phone on for it to be in control. Put it out of reach during the first deep work session of your day. Just 1 hour. Watch your mind breathe. Create a discipline trigger. One object in your space that tells your brain, this is where I focus. It can be a notebook, a candle, a timer, something that marks intention. Repetition turns it into a switch. Audit your environment's messages. Ask, what is my space telling me to do? If it says relax, scroll, or react, Don't expect focus to flow naturally there. You are not separate from your space, you're shaped by it. And here's the beautiful part. Just as your environment can sabotage your growth, it can also accelerate it. You can design spaces that make the disciplined version of you feel natural. You can remove friction. You can engineer simplicity. You can create an atmosphere where presence feels easier than escape. This is what Stephen Covey meant when he emphasized proactivity. You don't wait for discipline to show up. You build a world where it belongs. And that doesn't require money. It requires awareness. You can't build a new identity in the same environment that kept reinforcing the old one. So change something. One drawer, one routine, one visual cue, and do it with intention. Because you're not just cleaning a space, you're making room for a new version of you. And this matters more than it seems. Because here's what happens when your environment aligns with your values. You stop negotiating with distractions. You stop using willpower as your only tool. You feel supported, even when you're alone. You start trusting your space to reflect your priorities. And that gives you leverage. Now, when you sit down to work, your space whispers, "You're a builder." When you wake up, your room says, "You've already decided." When you feel tired, your environment reminds you, "You don't need to fight. Just return." That's the kind of energy you deserve to live in. Not pressure, not guilt, but alignment. So now the question is, what does your current environment say about you? And what do you want it to say instead? Because you're not just living in it, you're becoming it. And once you take that seriously, discipline won't feel like a struggle. It will feel like something your world expects from you and helps you achieve. Let's keep going. The next step will shift your idea of discipline completely. You've been trying to force yourself to change. You set goals. You make to-do lists. You try to stay on track. And when it falls apart, again, you blame your willpower. You say, "I just don't have enough discipline. I always fall back. I get motivated, but I can't stay consistent." But what if the problem isn't your motivation? And it's not your habits. It's the identity you keep reinforcing without realizing? Let me explain. Every action you take is a vote for the type of person you believe you are. And over time, those small votes add up into something massive. Your self-image, your story, your identity. And here's the truth most people never hear. You don't become disciplined by doing hard things. You become disciplined when you believe, deeply, "I am someone who follows through." Because that belief, that identity, changes everything. Suddenly, waking up early isn't a punishment. It's just what someone like you does. Suddenly, showing up even when it's hard isn't dramatic. It's natural, because that's who you are. But here's the catch. You can't fake that identity. You have to build it, one aligned decision at a time. And it starts now. Because maybe for years, you've been living with a fractured identity. You say you want to be disciplined, but your daily actions still reinforce the old version of you. And every time you break a promise to yourself, even a small one, you teach your brain, "I'm not someone who finishes." You harden the identity of inconsistency. You make it easier to quit next time. Not because you're weak, because repetition always wins. This is why it feels like you're stuck in a loop. Because you are, not just in behavior, but in belief. So how do you escape? You stop trying to act disciplined and start acting like the person you want to become. You ask every day, "If I already believed I was disciplined, how would I move today?" And then you do just one thing from that place. Not a big gesture, not a complete overhaul, just one aligned choice. Because the brain doesn't respond to declarations, it responds to evidence. Give it evidence. If you hit snooze every morning, you're casting a vote for, "I don't follow through." But if you get up just once, even when it's hard, you cast a vote for someone new. And that vote matters. Because over time, identity becomes habit. And habit becomes reality. This is how discipline becomes effortless, not because it's easy, but because it feels true. Let's be clear. You're not trying to become someone else. You're trying to return to the version of you that keeps promises and trusts that they matter. That version already exists. It's just buried under repetition of the opposite. But you can reverse it today. Try this. Write down one sentence that defines the identity you're building. Make it simple, present tense, embodied. "I am someone who finishes what I start. I am someone who shows up for my future." I am someone who doesn't break their own word. Place that sentence where you'll see it. On your mirror, on your phone, on your workspace. Live it once per day. Choose one moment to act in full alignment with it. Doesn't matter how small. What matters is that it's true. Do this for 7 days and watch what shifts. You'll stop asking for motivation because now you're not chasing feelings. You're confirming identity. And here's something powerful that Covey taught, and few people truly understand. To change behavior, change belief. But to change belief, change behavior consistently. That's not a contradiction. That's a loop you control. And every time you complete it, every time you believe and behave in harmony, you rewire your future. You don't need to force discipline. You need to stop reinforcing its opposite. So let this be the turning point. From today on, every time you make a small promise to yourself and keep it, celebrate. Because that's not a task. That's a vote. And every vote gets counted. You are not undisciplined. You are not unreliable. You are simply out of practice with the identity that already belongs to you. And you're reclaiming it, one decision at a time. Let's keep going. Because next, we fix the first moment of your day where everything either begins or breaks. You don't lose discipline at 2 p.m. You lose it in the first 5 minutes of your day. Before you've said a word. Before you've moved your body. Before you've remembered what you're working for. That's when it starts. Or ends. Because those first 5 minutes aren't just the start of a day. They are the first vote you cast for who you are. And most people hand that vote away without even realizing. You open your eyes. And instead of asking, what matters today? You reach for your phone. You check messages. You scroll through noise. You see what everyone else is doing. And just like that, your mind is no longer yours. You've handed your attention, your clarity, your presence to the algorithm, to the updates, to the chaos of the world. You didn't choose that, but you allowed it. And that one decision sets the tone for everything else. Because here's the pattern. Start your day in reactivity, you stay reactive. Start your day in clarity, you move with intention. Start your day avoiding yourself, you spend it avoiding what matters. Start your day remembering who you are. You protect that identity all day long. You've been told that discipline is about what you do later, when it's hard, when it's tempting, when you're tired. But discipline starts before all of that. It starts when your brain is soft, quiet, and most programmable. That window, right after waking, is sacred. It's when your subconscious is most impressionable. It's when your default mode is established. And if you fill it with distraction, you've already lost the fight. But here's the beauty. You can reclaim that moment. You can design a ritual that protects your power before anything else touches it. And no, it doesn't have to be a perfect morning routine. You don't need an hour of silence, a perfect meditation space, or a fancy checklist. You just need 5 minutes of leadership. Let me show you how. The 5-minute identity ritual. Do not touch your phone. Not for 5 minutes. Not to check anything. That one boundary alone reclaims your sovereignty. It says, I decide how this day begins. Sit up. Breathe with presence. Nothing fancy. Just notice your breath. Remind yourself, I'm here. I'm awake. This is mine. Speak your identity. Remember what we built in step 5? Say your sentence aloud. I am someone who finishes what I start. I am someone who respects their time. I am someone who protects their focus. This is not just affirmation, it's alignment. Choose your top 1 to 3 intentions. Ask, what do I need to honor today to stay aligned with who I am? Not a to-do list, a commitment. Show up with energy for your deep work. Finish that one thing you keep delaying. Say no to one distraction. Write them down if you can. That makes it real. Return to your body. Stretch. Walk. Drink water. Signal to yourself that you're in motion and in control. That's it. 5 minutes. But those 5 minutes do what hours of scrambling can't. They anchor your identity before the world tries to steal it. And when you repeat that daily, something shifts. Not just in how you feel, but in how you act. You stop negotiating with yourself. You stop starting your day in survival mode. You stop forgetting who you're trying to become. And the best part? This ritual doesn't depend on how you feel. You don't need to be in the mood. You don't need to wait for motivation. You just need to show up once and let that version of you lead. Because how you begin sets a direction. And when your direction is clear, your day doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be yours. You've already lived too many mornings where you surrendered your power before you got out of bed. Let today be different. Let this be the first morning you lead, instead of react. The first morning you act like the identity you're building. The first morning that isn't stolen by noise or old habits. And if you fall off track, tomorrow, return. No guilt, no drama, just return. Because discipline isn't built by never falling. It's built by getting back into alignment. Faster, cleaner, without shame. And when you string together enough of those mornings, you become someone else. Not by force, by design. So tonight, prepare for tomorrow. Place your phone across the room. Set out your notebook. Write your identity sentence on a sticky note. Then wake up and choose. Not the world, not the past, not your distractions. You. And I promise, the rest of the day will follow that choice. Let's move forward. Because the next step is your moment of truth. It's where everything either becomes real or remains an idea. You've been told that change takes time, that you need more motivation, more planning, more systems. But here's the truth most people avoid. Change doesn't take time. Change takes a moment, a decision, followed by alignment. Time just reveals whether or not that decision was real. And you've reached that moment now. Not because this video has all the answers, but because something inside you is different. Not louder, clearer. Because for the first time in a long time, you're not trying to fix yourself. You're starting to understand yourself. You're starting to see that your lack of consistency wasn't failure, it was feedback. That your distractions weren't random, they were rehearsed. That your environment, your routines, your thoughts, they were all building something. And now, you get to ask, is what I've been building what I actually want to become? Because you don't rise to the level of your hopes. You rise to the level of your design. And your design is made up of small, invisible choices. What you look at when you wake up. What you tell yourself when you fail. What you allow when nobody's watching. What you repeat without realizing. Those tiny repetitions shape identity more than any plan ever could. And now you know that. Now you've seen the loops. Now you've heard the voice of distraction for what it really is. A thief pretending to be comfort. So what happens next? Not a revolution. A return. A return to presence over pressure. To clarity over chaos. To you, before the noise, the excuses, the confusion. Because discipline was never about pressure. It was about choosing yourself, on purpose and without apology. And now you can. Not because you're perfect, but because you've decided. That's the line no one else can cross for you. The quiet, personal, irreversible choice to stop betraying your future self. You've already taken the first step. You broke the illusion that you're undisciplined. You've seen that you're not lazy, just overloaded. Not inconsistent, just unclear. Not incapable, just surrounded by distractions that no longer fit who you are becoming. And when you see that clearly, something shifts. You no longer crave motivation. You crave alignment. You start leading yourself instead of managing your chaos. You stop chasing strategies and start protecting your mind. You stop saying, one day I'll change, and start asking, what would someone who already changed do right now? And then you do that, not to prove anything, just to cast one more vote for the version of you that's been buried under noise, waiting to rise. That version is already here. She's the one who paused in the middle of this video and said, yes, that's me. He's the one who heard a sentence and fell to silence because it hit something real. That version isn't future. It's present, and it's choosing now. So let's close this the way we began. Not with hype, with honesty. You are not undisciplined. You are not broken. You are not weak. You are powerful, but scattered. Capable, but interrupted. Ready, but distracted. And now, you're not anymore. Now you're aware. Now you've chosen. So protect that choice. Build around it. Design for it. Wake up for it. Let the old patterns die quietly, and don't argue with them. Just keep choosing. And the world won't understand at first. Because you won't be louder, you'll be calmer. You won't be doing more, you'll be doing what matters. You won't be trying to impress, you'll be trying to stay aligned. And that is what makes you unshakable. So here's the final invitation. Don't let this be another video you liked. but didn't live. Let this be your turning point. Start where you are. Start small. Start silent. But start like someone who has already decided. And if these words echoed something you've been feeling for a long time, if you've been quietly waiting for a moment to shift your direction, this is it. Subscribe now, not to follow me, but to remind yourself, you're not doing this alone. There's a place for people who lead themselves, and you just became one of them. Let's keep going. The next video will help you reinforce what you've just built, so it doesn't get stolen by the next storm. Your change has already started. Now keep it alive.